All right, I want to do a quick discussion / lecture. We got some theory and some code on this one around inheritance. You guys have studied inheritance before in C#. I know you've studied inheritance in C#, so you're familiar with the concept of passing down properties and methods from parents to children. Okay, and I see my students shaking their head. Did you know there's inheritance in JavaScript? Well, there is. Okay, there is inheritance in JavaScript. You often hear it called the prototype chain. Okay, so I know this is a concept that's newer to you in this language. The inheritance concept is not new, but calling it the prototype chain is. Okay, but basically the prototype chain is the inheritance chain from parent to child to grandchild and great-great-grandchild, etc. Right? And what do you inherit? You inherit, like I said, properties and methods. Every object in JavaScript has a property. It's this double underscore proto double underscore. See that internal property? Where every object basically has a pointer to its parent. Okay, so if you have an object and that object has a parent, it keeps track of that inside of this property. And while you can access that property directly, you should use, and this is the ECMAScript guidance. The guidance is to not directly access the proto property, but instead use some methods to work with determining your parent and setting your parent and so on and so forth. Okay, so high level stuff, guys. Yes, there's inheritance in JavaScript. It's called the prototype chain. Every object can have a parent, and you can determine it with these methods if you want to figure out who the parent is. JavaScript has single inheritance. Some languages can have multiple parents, like in the real world, Quinn, you have multiple parents. And in the programming world, sometimes a child can have multiple parents. Not in C# and not in JavaScript. You have one parent in JavaScript. Okay, now that parent can also have a parent, and it can go up and down, thus creating the chain. At the very top of the chain, it's just a value of null. So it's called the null prototype. And so we'll walk our way up and down a prototype chain so you can get the idea. Okay, a little bit more theory, and then I'm going to get into some code. The reason why this is a quick lecture is because you don't really have to work with this much. You don't have to work with inheritance a whole lot in the modern JavaScript that we'll be writing. So you can say, in general, you don't need to think about the prototype chain when doing everyday JavaScript development. However, it's important to understand how it works because it's the basis for the class keyword and essential knowledge as you dive deeper into JavaScript. Okay, so as we're diving deeper into JavaScript, this is a good thing to be familiar with. Okay, now I'm going to skip over that one because I meant to actually take that one out. Okay, so here's a JavaScript class. This class is called animal. You can create animal objects now, right? And all of our animal objects would have an alive property that's set to true, and all of our animal objects could eat. So we have a property, and we have a method that all of our animals could do. And very similar to C#, you can have a child-parent relationship. So in this case, we're creating a new class called dog. Dog extends animal. Extends is the keyword that creates the parent-child relationship. Therefore, all of our dogs would have a property that is the dog is alive, and the dog could eat if you were to create a dog object. But additionally, you could set a dog breed, and you could tell the dog to bark. Okay, so inheritance is always referred to as an is-a relationship. It's based on what things are. Okay, and in an inheritance chain, you go from generic at the top to more specific at the bottom. You would all agree that animal is more generic than dog, right? And if you go underneath dog, you might have the breeds like Chihuahua or Pit Bull or whatever. Okay, so if you're thinking of If you're thinking of a chain, inheritance chain, you go general down to specific, and it's always based on what things are. It's an is a chain. A dog is an animal, is a. Okay, so this is how you can implement inheritance in JavaScript. We don't call it inheritance, we call it the prototype chain. Okay, so I can spin up a dog object called myDog, and I can use that get prototype of to tell me that, hey, dog's parent is in fact animal. We kind of already knew that, but I throw that in the console.log. I can see that my dog has a property called alive, and by default that's set to true. So I can console log mydog.alive. I can tell my dog to eat, which is going to output nom nom nom, and I can tell my dog to bark, which is its own specific method in the child. Okay, and so real quickly, if I boot up a terminal and I use node to run my I gotta save Control S, and I run that command again, it'll work. It says the dog's parent is an object. I need to stringify that. True is the fact that my dog is alive. Nom 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 is the dog eating. That was an inherited method, and my dog.bark. Okay, big takeaway, inheritance exists. We understand inheritance. It exists in JavaScript. That's all good. I'm thinking if I JSON stringify this, that I actually get what I expected, which was animal. No.
Mr. Houston, one quick question.
Yeah, please.
So when you're doing like the
It's insignificant.
subclass of dog, and then if you're doing like a subclass of like the breed, would you
Yes.
just do like class breed extends animal or dog, and then would you have to
Yeah, class Chihuahua extends dog.
Okay.
Class Chihuahua extends dog. Yep. Okay, so that's using the, I'm not worrying about stringifying that. That's not the important part. Here's another example, right? Because this is using the class syntax, which is a more modern syntax. The fact that you guys learned class and objects in C# is a good thing for JavaScript, because that's a more modern way of working with objects in JavaScript. But you don't have to have a class. Remember, a class is just a blueprint for an object. You can have an object without a blueprint. That's the old school way, a little bit more old school way of writing JavaScript. So, like here's an object that doesn't have a class. This class is just called vehicle, and it's got a speed of 30. And here's another object called police car. That police car has a an emoji icon of a police car. If you really zoom in, you got a little police car there, right? Emoji Wikipedia is my favorite site. Okay, this is actually the old way of working with inheritance, and I'm just throwing it out there because if I want police car to be a child of vehicle, okay, this is using that set prototype type of. I kind of mentioned that up here, set prototype type of, that belongs to the object class, right? So if I have these objects that do not have a blueprint, I can actually set a child-parent relationship using this syntax. Okay? And if I were to say, hey, console log, is the prototype of police car equal to vehicle? Meaning, is the police car parent vehicle? I should get back the value of true. Okay, so let me go ahead and save that. Go back, and after woof, 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 I should see the value of true, right? Because this police car is a child of vehicle. Now, the same syntax here. So the parent of police car is vehicle, but what is the parent of vehicle? What is the parent of vehicle? Turns out that if you do not specifically inherit from another parent, your object automatically, its parent is this object.prototype. So if you're going up the chain, like we would start, the lowest in the chain would be police car, then you got vehicle, and above vehicle, you've got this object dot prototype. So it's basically saying, hey, you know, is vehicle's parent object dot prototype? We should get true again. So there you go. Above object dot prototype, again, we're going up the chain. Above object dot prototype, I said above them all is just the value of null. So at the very tip top of the prototype chain, you've just got the value of null, and that spits back the value of true. So we got a bunch of trues. And whatever, just showing you that now my police car has a speed because of that inheritance. And my police car has an icon. So there I get 30 miles an hour. That comes from the parent. And 30 miles an hour. And then that icon is the property that belongs to the police car. And last thing that I kind of show you is that there is this object.prototype, again, is the parent of your classes, or excuse me, of the parent of your objects if you don't specifically define one. There's also this prototype property on some different classes, like the array class. Interestingly enough, this syntax, like this will show me all of the array methods and properties. I just thought that was an interesting thing to show, that there's a prototype property that shows you all of the inherited methods that the array class has. And so if I kind of spin that up, like you're used to seeing like array.join, toSplice, toString, find index. Okay, these are all properties and or methods that exist on the array class that in some capacity have been inherited. Okay, so that's all I had for this lecture. That's all I had for the code demo. It's not super common to work with inheritance, as I kind of said up here. It's important to know it exists, but in general, you don't need to think about the prototype chain when doing everyday JavaScript development. I will tell you, I wrote MERN stack applications for some amount of time before I really understood and this very simple truth that there is inheritance in JavaScript. And it's just called the prototype chain. Any other questions? Cool. Let's get into labs.